Welcome to Threading Founders, the podcast that finds patterns between successful entrepreneurs and side hustlers so you can apply those insights into your ventures. I'm your host, Anthony Labasco. In this episode, I'm going to talk to Matt Bonvicin. Matt is a serial entrepreneur, which means that he started 15 businesses over the past 2 decades. So Matt started in corporate America, got involved in a hobby, turned it into a successful business, and the rest is history. The floodgates just opened. A couple of things about Matt. He's from Long Island. He went to Chaminade High School and the University of Buffalo, which he did not finish. So Matt does not like to be the front man of his businesses. He'd like to make the magic happen behind the curtain, right? So he's more of a Steve Wozniak type, or even like the wizard from the Wizard of Oz. This is the first of a 2-episode series, so stay tuned next week for part 2. Because with the help of AI, we're going to analyze his success factors from our discussion today. Then at the end of the season, we're going to thread together all the success factors of each of our 10 guests to see their patterns. I'm going to talk to Matt about how and why he started some of his businesses and some of the lessons he's learned along the way. If you like this conversation and think someone else will too, hit that subscribe button so you can get all of our latest episodes. Thank you, and enjoy the conversation with Matt.
Welcome to Threading Founders, the podcast that uses AI to find patterns between successful entrepreneurs and side hustlers, so you can use these insights into your ventures. Sit back, take notes, and enjoy the show with your host, Anthony Labasco.
It's great to have you on the podcast. How you doing?
It is great to be here. Thank you. Good evening. And I am looking forward to speaking.
Awesome. So let me get this straight. You're a serial entrepreneur who doesn't like to be the front man. What does that actually mean?
It means that if I ever start the next big business that turns into SpaceX or Google, that I'd rather keep on working on the next one and let someone else grow it and build it and be on the red carpet. It's just not my thing. Yeah. I love coming up with ideas. I love implementing those ideas. And to me, that's the fun part. Truthfully, I've joked with my best friend about this. If who's usually been my front man, if I were the next Elon Musk, I would basically pay him and say, "Your name is Elon," publicly. And, I'll be the wallflower. Yeah.
Be careful what you wish for. Be careful what you wish for. So before you started your first business, you were in corporate America. Tell me a little bit about that. What was that? What'd you do?
I was. So like, as you mentioned, I never did finish college. I did a year and a half. I got sick. I left and I was working. I went back to a job when I left or was better again. I went IT contracting company put me into Birmingham, Alabama at Bell South.
Okay.
So from Bell South, which eventually now is AT&T again, did a bunch of positions there, changed jobs a few times. But I was always doing, again, I'd say I'm a jack of all trades when it comes to IT and the master of none. I've kind of done everything there is. I may not be the best at any one of them. But even when I was working for other larger companies and enterprises, I still was always looking for that. Hey, what's the maximum bang we can get with this little investment of time and money? It's just what I enjoy doing. And eventually, that led to my first business at one point.
What inspired you to start your first business? And your first business was named Sportswear, and that's WARE.
Yep. So when around 2000, the turn of the century, as the kids will call it, I was still smoking and was dating a woman who was a runner and was getting me into running and getting me into, back to cycling, which is what I used to do when I was a kid here on Long Island. a lot of cycling. So I got into triathlon and quit smoking. There's a positive. But that led me in around 2004 to co-found a triathlon club in Birmingham, Alabama, where I lived. Kind of, in leadership lessons, that was a big one. I never intended to really start an organization that, I think by the end of that year, we were the fourth largest in the country. We were bigger than LA. We were bigger than New York at the time. Yeah.
How many members did you guys have?
At the height in that first few months, it was about 380, I think, which is not huge. Clubs are a lot bigger today, but that did kind of teach me that it's not necessarily the best athlete who's going to be the person who is best to run it. And even then, I didn't think I was the best person to run it. I was happy doing the background stuff, but part of that goes into a fake it until you make it mentality, of the confidence where, if you really exude the confidence of like, we're going to make this happen, you want to be a part of it. And that leads even into business, whether it's working for a company or for yourself. So I got very involved in the sport of triathlon. I got very involved in the governance of triathlon when I was elected to the USA Triathlon Southeast Board of Directors, and eventually was appointed, elected president of that, and met a lot of people at the national level and, both locally and nationally in the sport. And then I got more involved in how the sport worked and realized there was a better way to do event management, a better way to use technology to help manage events that would make participants happier and would make event directors, the people who put on the events, more money and kind of improve the workflow, really. And that was my first business.
So before you came to that realization, how are things being done?
So it was similar to, if you really go back, that was 2005. So we're almost talking 20 years. But back then, you could buy tickets online for a concert, but there was no secondary market, where I can't make it. So I want to, sell this ticket to somebody else. So basically at the time, you paid online. That was it. Everything, the transaction is done. You show up for the event. There's no other integration to send participants an email or to cancel when I break my leg 2 weeks before the race, or to have a wait list so that somebody who wanted to do that race and, it was already filled to capacity. So I broke my leg. I could get a credit to do another race in the future. That person on the wait list could automatically be put in. They're happy. The race director is happy. The race is still full. That person probably is going to pay a lot more money for the event than I did because I registered 6 months earlier and they're paying the price right before. So, but at the same time, everyone's happy. And that didn't really exist. So it's a very common thing these days. This is all common for anyone who registers for a 5K, even you'll see a lot of stuff like this.
Really cool. So it kind of hits on a couple of different things, right? I mean, your passion for triathlon, being involved in that, and really, your passion for automation, right? All in one. But at the end of the day, if I'm understanding this correctly, you were looking at a way to really improve the quality of your members and the experience of your members. But in reality, you're kind of building a side hustle as well. And did you realize that you were doing that at first?
It really, I remember thinking about whether it could be a side hustle, and I decided against it. So I quit my job at the time, and it was probably October, maybe September.
Wow.
of 2004. And then when registration opened in March the next year, the software I had ready to go. So it really, I think I had $39,000 in my bank account when I quit. And it was okay. I have enough to live and keep in mind, another positive of living in a place like Birmingham over
Right.
New York is it's significantly, cheaper than trying to do something like that in New York or other places. But no, that was quit my job and, just code all night long, sleep when I could, get it done.
So you went from hobby to business. Forget about side hustle. You said, you know what? I can do this. And you just said, you know what? I'm going to go and do this. And during that process, Matt, did you in your mind think about, well, I'm sure you did, but did you spell out a business, how you would make money? What steps did you take in order to plan for that?
Well, the really good news for me was my friend Therese, really good friend who had been managing the majority, she and her business partner had been managing or putting on the majority of races for triathlon. So I worked very closely with her. She was on board before I even wrote the software. God bless her. Short answer, I remember modeling it. And even then it was a leap of faith. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, where I'm sitting, I get it. And there definitely isn't a big element of a leap of faith, but you essentially had a focus group.
I did. And customers.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah. You had a focus group and customers. So, that's amazing how you were able to do that. It sounds like that just kind of fell into things. Did you plan for that to happen or?
No, it was being encouraged by this friend, Therese, as I mentioned it. I also got involved in the timing of races, which is a lot of IT in that.
What was the turning point of your business? Do you think, like, when did you know it was going to be successful?
Oh, yes. I have said this. Okay. So most people, most of the time you assume, I think a lot of people equate the entrepreneurship with, all of a sudden someone buys you out and there's $10 million. Of course there's a lot of pain and suffering and heartbreak in between. But I think what you're referring to is the season opened that year. I'm staring at a computer screen wondering if anything's going to crash. The first customer gets on and registers for a race. And I think the race was $38, which probably for me equated to about 80 cents of profit. And not much, but I called my best friend who was also in business for himself in Texas at the time. And he kind of forced me to pause and say, you created this. You created something that someone paid you for that created value. Forget the fact that it's only, 79 cents, focus on that. And he was totally right. Anytime someone wants to pay you to do something, especially when it didn't exist before, that's awesome. Even if you're the kid selling lemonade on the street.
So what would you say during that whole entire process? What was your biggest challenge you faced during the, early stages of building, that business, and how'd you overcome those challenges?
You think that you're building, and in my case, a technology company, which I was. I'm enough of a developer. I knew I could pull that part off. But it's everything else. You're going to be doing the marketing. You're going to be doing the accounting. You're going to be doing, in truth, I spent 3 years doing consulting, until last year. And if everybody who did consulting had started a business at some point, then consultants would probably be paid even more than they now are already. because in consulting, you're expected to be the expert in whatever you're asked to be. When you own a business, or especially start it from scratch, you simply have to become the expert.
You have to be, right?
I remember having more difficulty with what the hell is double ledger accounting? But I have to track this because I got to be able to do my taxes, and I have to know what I can write off versus and learning that stuff, which to me was annoying. I just wanted to write code and do what I was, and get to the final product. But it really, once you realize nothing's beyond your grasp, you can do it. You may not like doing the accounting, the marketing, the sales, but it's got to get done. Someone has to do it. And once you start realizing I can do this, it's probably why once you've done one business, you're that much more likely to do another one, big or small, because been there, done that. The stuff that was annoying the first time that, you already know how to do it.
So how does a guy like you that doesn't like any of those tasks, or how do you figure out how to do it?
Well, these days you Google. Back then it wasn't quite there yet.
Right.
But I had numerous friends who ran their own businesses. So, I think I've said this before, to anyone starting a business, you want to form a core group of, your friends. Yeah. Hopefully an entrepreneur doesn't have to be as, slick as it sounds. They could be the barber. They could be the, dry cleaner you go to. But those people are important because you're going to be asking them on a very regular basis, who's your accountant? Do you like them? Who do you use for this? For simple stuff, there's so many commonalities that if you are surrounding yourself with those people who have been there, done that, and the other thing to remember is you're going to get called for a favor, which is, Matt, I have no idea what software I should use for this.
Right.
And that's totally cool because 2 months ago, they hooked you up with a new banker who solved a problem for you and suggested something else. So to me, I discovered this when I got into triathlon. When all of my friends were triathletes, it was very hard to skip a workout, or it was very hard to slack off. You were kind of accountable without even thinking about it. And it's the same thing. If all of your friends are thinking about new business ideas or doing new business ideas, then you have people to bounce ideas off of, just like they do. So it's who you surround yourself with. I
like that a lot. That's a great lesson.
I don't know if I answered your question.
No, you did. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, having a core group of not only trusted advisors, but even taking it a step further, friends that really have different, different areas of expertise that can really complement each other is really the key to success.
And run an organization. In my case, I started one, was elected to another. Started the triathlon club, was elected to another. And I realized very quickly, you could be the president. Yay. You can't do everything. You need to recruit good people and realize your weaknesses. And sometimes when someone is better at even what you consider to be your strength, and listen. And that's where I think even running a non-profit organization really came in handy as well.
So what was your exit, Matt, on this?
My exit on that was through USA Triathlon, I met another serial entrepreneur, very interesting guy who was looking at the time to start a social networking website for athletes, like Facebook sort of for athletes, and license the technology to that new company with an exit over like a 2-year period. So, which was totally fine because a different person, I knew it, could take it and make it bigger. I probably could. I've always been told you do well in sales. I'm kind of a people person, but it's not really what I would enjoy doing.
Yeah.
This person had a proven track record, had started and sold a record label, and really, to me, it was a perfect opportunity, for both of us.
So this led to kind of an avalanche of businesses, but more so, I love the story of the second business that you got into. So tell me a little bit about that and how you made that transition from sportswear to your second business.
The second one was a side hustle. That was an opportunity that was just put in front of me by a friend who did online marketing for some large corporations and kind of had discovered a loophole at the time, doesn't exist anymore, inside of Google for advertising. So it really was a side hustle until it became clear how much money this, was in this.
When you say side hustle, you mean that it was a side hustle to your consulting while you were exiting?
Yes. It even started before that. It even started earlier than that. At the time, then I got my best friend involved, which was perfect because he's the hire people, grow the business, let me focus on the technology to automate it, which was awesome. So basically what we did was, in the world at the time, and it was a wild west for affiliate marketing, which has stabilized a lot these days, but it's still around you everywhere. In every article you read, every link you click, this sounds like a Sting song. Basically it was, sorry. I'm going to work on words for that one.
That's a good one.
Broadway musical coming out 2025. So it was arbitrage. We would sign up for every affiliate marketing program that was. If it existed, we would sign up for it. It could be sometimes 200 a day, but 5,000 running on any given day. Who knows? But the software that what we did was say, okay, on average, we get 100 clicks per day on this merchant. From our ads, we spend $3 per click on that merchant, and we make $2 per click. That's not good. We're losing $1 every time.
Yeah.
Sometimes but what you basically wrote this to try and be smart enough. I don't want to say it's machine learning because that's the cool thing to say these days, but it was breaking things down to numbers that it could self-regulate and say, okay, on this merchant, we get 100 clicks a day. They cost us $1.50 each. And on average, we make $15 each. So now I'm willing to pay up to $15 a click to get more of them. And that's really what that software did, as well as automate the ad creation, even the copy and converting it to different languages. But we had people. Yeah, we had people who would feed the raw data in. It would crunch it on an ongoing basis
that sounds like a business that you can literally do from almost anywhere, as much as it's automating, is when you have the automation down.
Totally.
Am I understanding this?
We would get text, we would get alerts and messages and emails, when something went horribly wrong and all of a sudden there was $1,000 click or something. But we did. I'm a big traveler. I think when I left Morocco in March, I was country 65, and I probably did 40 of those, while I was working on that software. So I did the software. Kent did the business. Kent then fed back into ideas of, okay, this is what we need the software to do now. So some of it was my idea, some of it was his, some of it was the people that, were working for us. But it was a decent amount of money for a while. It really was.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure it was more than decent. That's great. So then from there, you had you had probably roughly about a dozen more businesses after that. I mean, we're not going to go into detail about every one of them, but maybe just a highlight of some of the other businesses and how you had gotten involved in them, because I think it's interesting with you that, it's like a web of, it's basically a circle of trust that you
Yeah.
have, right? And you have this circle of trust of people that, that you have gotten involved in. But why don't you explain that a little bit to me?
So first of all, many of the subsequent businesses were sort of subsidiaries of the original, and it was easier to segregate in different industries, et cetera, by just doing a new business. There was a point when we used to create a business almost every week by sending an email to Chase and say, here's my new tax ID. I need a new account. But in totally separate realms, that brings us to Steve. Steve is a good friend. He was a mentor to Kent, again, my best friend, when they worked together at a financial company many years ago. But Steve is always looking for the next thing.
He's the ultimate serial entrepreneur.
Amazing, phenomenal. And sometimes you kind of roll your eyes. Sometimes you're like, I get it. This is amazing. Sometimes, and I've been involved with one with him that I didn't see it. I wasn't the target customer. I wasn't. I still built all the technology and I loved it. I enjoyed it. That was a private safe deposit box facility.
Right.
It was fascinating to me. From a technology point of view, but even though the whole time I wasn't someone who would pay to use his service. Steve started to call it a yoga studio in Arizona was really underselling it, because it was a massive, from bar to yoga to hot yoga to, oh my gosh, it was like 9,000 square feet. It was huge. The more people you have like this, the more ideas get bounced around, the better. Whether you get involved or not. But in my case, I was always the technology person. In the end, when it came down to, we need some technology to support this, that was, okay, time to call Matt.
That's really cool. That actually kind of brings me into the final part of this conversation. As much as I really want to get into all the businesses, because I think it's fascinating, and I think that you guys have probably gotten very creative on a lot of things, but some lessons that you've learned. And I think that maybe a good place to start would be, having a strong team. What else can you say about?
It's interesting when you know people well enough that Kent knows me well enough to know that this one's going to take Matt a week. He's going to shake his head and say, no, but he knows that I'm going to come back in a week and probably say, what about this? When you know people well enough that you can even divide tasks without talking about it. It gets already done. As soon as you talk, you just, go over at a high level because you know each other well enough. Always be open to the fact that someone could have a better idea than you. I'm tomorrow teaching a class at my job on technology, and I will almost always start it with, because I'm usually the one coming up with the master plan, but I'll always start it with, if you have a better idea or you think you do than what I've done, let me know. I'm cool with that, which is really good. Also, I think it sets a precedent. It sets the mood that's like, I'm not telling you the way to do this. There is no one way for a lot of things. That's a superpower in itself, especially in IT, where I feel like everybody wants to convince everyone that they know everything.
So would you say then, with you guys, with Kent, with Steve, with other people as well, I mean, checking your ego at the door is also a key, also key to do, right?
If you get to a certain size, you need the figurehead. You need someone who's at least do it humbly, do it with, the assumption that you're not always the smartest person in the room just because you came up with the idea. Once you start sharing it, be open about it. Absolutely.
It's ego, man. It's ego. I mean, that's what it comes down to is ego. And, I think when people realize or are able, because everyone is not able to check their ego. And that's a superpower. Checking your ego is a superpower, and putting it beside and then saying, you know what? I don't know what I don't know. So I'm going to ask someone else.
Yeah.
When you have a group of people that you're able to do that and you feel comfortable and you're okay with people saying to you, all right, Matt, do this, do that, because I know you're awesome at it. I know you're going to do it, and it's coming from a good place. And, it just kind of goes around and around, and that's how it all works, man. And what you have and what you've created with this, with your group of friends and your group of entrepreneurs that you guys have, been on this journey together. I mean, that in itself, in my opinion, that's your biggest superpower. That's
like
what has
rings. There's so many different rings of friends who are always talking about different businesses,
But they have all, like, if you were to get commonality between them, they probably have a commonality between them as well, a common characteristic.
Totally. And I'd say that's a very big part of it. I'd say that's is being able to say, I can add this, but I won't add this. And also saying things that even you think might be stupid.
Yeah, there are no stupid questions, right? Until someone says one, right? That's unfortunately the culture that we all have, that we're all part of. But when you can break down that barrier and you can say those stupid questions or comments or anything like that, and then just kind of move past it, dude, that's amazing. Yeah.
And I think those are some lessons I learned even running nonprofit, company, organization. These are my ideas, but be very open to the fact that someone with many better ideas can come along any second. And that's cool.
Everything you've done in your career, how did you work-life balance? Was there an aspect of work-life balance, and did you learn during that process?
A lot. And a lot of that is, also, I think we've all learned a lot since COVID on, we're all sitting in our office, our home office all day. And, I think the world has gotten better, much better at it. But I'd like to think I have. But in the early days where it was my money on the line, and even with all this, I had a certain amount of time to get this done and create a product. And, I can say there's definite regrets there. Was dating an amazing woman that I did not spend nearly enough time with, because it was just this race to get to the end. And the truth is, these days, as I've learned, no matter how busy the workday is and things are really hitting the fan, I solve problems when I take a break in the middle of the day and I go ride my bike or I go run, and all of a sudden I solve everything. So you're not always doing yourself a favor by just keep working 20 hours straight. So that took a long time to learn. So I wouldn't say I was great at that in the beginning. I'd sure as heck like to think I'm much, much better at it now. It's also a lot easier once you have enough money coming in to say, okay, I can take a break now. But that was a long time coming. Yeah, I definitely overdid it back then, for sure.
Overdid it with the working. Would you consider yourself a workaholic or work hard, play hard, that kind of thing?
No, it was too much work, period. Like, at least in that first year. It's almost like the Catholic guilt, where it was like, if I'm not sitting in front of the computer doing something, quote, productive, then I'm not doing my quote job. Even though, as I've later come to realize, you need the breaks. You absolutely need it, and when I step away in a big problem is usually when I solve it, and without even thinking about it. It just happens.
One thing that you talked about was businesses don't have to be as sexy as you think, right? They don't need to be. You don't need to create a Tesla or a SpaceX or Google or Facebook. something not as glamorous can be extremely successful. And
it's a very interesting time when, I have to admit, as someone who is approaching 50, when I hear the word creator, it still doesn't seem like that should be a job, but it is to a lot of people. There's opportunity everywhere to take things that you are passionate about and turn into a living. We all, as kids, want to be the next rock star, the next Elvis or Bon Jovi, but there's plenty of people who are singing at weddings happily, doing what they love and making enough to survive. It does not have to be. Sometimes it's right in front of you. And if it happens to coincide with something else that you love, then that's awesome. That's going to make it a lot easier. Yeah.
I mean, that's, you've won. That's people don't realize that a lot.
Etsy alone, where you see people who used to have some hobby and now they can make a good living at it, which is awesome.
Love this conversation, Matt. Your journey is awesome. I cannot wait to see what's next for you, because it's going to be something awesome. It's going to be something amazing. And I'm just grateful that you are
Chick-fil-A drive-through. That is the job I aspire to. Chick-fil-A drive-through. That's where I'm going. You heard it here first. Yes, that's what I'm retiring to. Yep.
Chick-fil-A is gluten-free, so that's a good. I like
too
that
bad,
idea.
because in the 10 seconds it took you to tell me that, I was already thinking of the next idea, which was gluten-free Chick-fil-A equivalent. Oh well. All right, back to plan A.
Oh man, this is awesome. Thanks a lot, man. Appreciate everything.
Thank you. Best of luck with the podcast. I'm looking forward to listening in the future. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, man. Have a good night, Matt.